Becoming a god for many people already drives them to evil deeds. Look at how awful the Greek gods of myth are in stories, as an example. So you can just imagine when you take an already inherently evil character like a supervillain and add some godlike powers, just what you get. Today we'll be talking about how some of the villains went from super to god mode, what brought them there, and in some cases, what took them down, as we count down the top 10 supervillains who became gods, part 2. That's right, part 2. So if you haven't seen my girl Kelly's part 1, be sure to check that out after as well. And be sure to stick around till the end of this video where we will have some bonus content coming your way. Alright, let's get counting. Number 10. Black Hand. The Black Hand is William Hand, a notable Green Lantern villain. His backstory was actually retconned to make him better fit in the events of the Blackest Night story arc. In that story, he is also a Green Lantern villain, but one who is obsessed with death. He works at his family's funeral home and is an implied necrophiliac. Ugh. He ends up killing his family after death calls to him, urging him to destroy the superheroes who have thwarted both William and death itself by living. After killing his family, he commits suicide and is rewarded with the first Black Lantern ring. I like that I just don't explain why he killed his family, but you know, when death whispers to you. This ring and his new role as a Black Lantern helped him to cast the spell Raise Dead by granting others Black Lantern rings and adding their strength to that of the Black Lantern Corps. Eventually, the Black Lanterns killed enough to then give Black Hand the power to summon the Guardian of Death, Nekron, who went on to threaten the very existence of all heroes on Earth. However, when Green Lantern uses the white light of creation, Black Hand is forcefully resurrected, breaking his ties to the Black Lantern Corps and to Nekron, who was using Black Hand as a link to the realm of the living. Wah wah wah. Defeated. Number 9. Poison Ivy. In the Everyone Loves Ivy story arc, Poison Ivy ends up finding a way to take over the world. Being one of the more relatable villains, she argues that she is working to do so in order to protect the world and humanity with it. The way she looks at it, humanity left to their own devices would destroy everything. Batman finds out about this motive after he and Selina Kyle get free of her control and discover that Poison Ivy is controlling everyone through their consumption of vegetables. Dun dun dun. Which has allowed her to infiltrate the entire world's mind, because you know, she controls vegetables, then you eat them, then she controls you. While this doesn't make her a god on a universal scale, on a more local and somewhat biblical scale, this could be considered a godhood. She does eventually decide to relinquish the control of the planet, but not because Batman and Catwoman beat her. She's like unbeatable right now. She gives it up when they are able to free Harley long enough to have Poison Ivy's best friend and sometimes love interest coax out of Pamela the real motive behind this whole world domination plot, and convince her that she doesn't need to control the world any longer. Harley's there to take care of Ivy, and Ivy can finally rest. Aw, it got cute at the end. Number 8. Carnage. Carnage had appeared to die in the comics after slamming back down into the Earth and burning up in orbit after being discarded by an alternate symbiotic-obsessed alien race known as the Poisons. Though Cletus appeared deceased after this trip, despite his symbiote's hearty attempts to keep its host alive, he found himself revived by the hands of a Null worshipping cult. Beyond that, he also found himself momentarily connected to Null, granting him even more strength than he once had. He set out to collect all of the codexes of those who had ever bonded with the symbiote, stored in their spines, apparently, to help free the god Null. Every time he consumes a codex, he appears to get stronger, allowing him to eventually regain the Grendel symbiote's godlike powers. Like a godlike Carnage is so scary, so terrifying. Number 7. The Orb. The Orb is a strange Marvel villain who boasts of enhanced senses and an eye for a head. He ended up managing to get his hands on one of Utah's eyes after dreams of the Watcher's base inspired him to rob the Watchers. Eventually, after losing the eye and then regaining it again, he bonded with it, giving him the ability to see as a Watcher does. The Orb, once a second-rate villain, now has godlike omniscience. While he claims to uphold the Watcher's vow of non-interference, he also believes he should be allowed to help along any events, which would simply help others to reach their full potential. That's kind of interference, just FYI. Not limiting this, well, ultimately interference, because that's what it is, to just those with good intentions, but also helping to advance the plots of more insidious individuals, such as murderers. So maybe the Orb shouldn't have that power. Maybe he shouldn't be able to see everything. Seems dangerous. Number 6. Apocalypse. Before Apocalypse was Apocalypse, he was just En Sabah Nur. Born disfigured, before he was even Nur, he was simply a small baby, abandoned and left to die. Aw, poor little baby. Fortunately, Baal of the Crimson Sands, a raider, found him and decided to raise him as his own. He gave him the name En-Saba Nur. Nur gained much strength and wit already just as a normal child, simply from training, but he wasn't quite at god level yet. He wouldn't really gain much power until his mutant abilities surfaced, after his adoptive father died, leaving his son with a prophecy to fulfill. Baal believed that Nur was destined to be a great conqueror and defeat Pharaoh Rama-Tut, who was in actuality time-traveling Kang. Nur came after Tut, aka Kang, and defeated him, Kang escaping through time travel, because that's how he do. During his battle, Nur would have died, but his mutation activated, making him immortal and saving him. He would go on to receive telepathic communication from the Celestials and discover an alien spaceship that would make him even stronger than before, and allow him to become the godlike being that we know him to be today, as we know him, Apocalypse. A dude who literally modified and forced other mutants into becoming his deity-like horsemen. You know you're a god when you literally are creating other little gods. That's a whole thing. Number 5. Kratos. That's right, for this one we are turning to the video game God of War. It's not a comic book, but hey, supervillains don't just exist in comics. And you know me, I like to sprinkle in some different nerd content every now and then. Sneak something a little different in for you, keep you on your toes, little anime, little video games, little pop culture. Now fans of the God of War video game saga may argue that Kratos is not a supervillain though, he's an anti-hero. And while at this point in time in the new God of War with his son Atreus, I would agree with you. But he used to be a really terrible dude, whose actions were often more self-serving, which honestly makes him sometimes even worse than some of the supervillains on this list, who at least appear to be working toward their own twisted greater good at least. I mean, Poison Ivy, she just thinks she's helping, so. It was his obsession with power and lust for war that led him to become Ares' ward, and ended up being his own undoing. This sets him on a path for vengeance, but even then his path of vengeance is also kind of self-serving. He only goes after Ares because Athena promises that the death of his family by his own hands, which Ares tricked him into doing, and all of his other sins will be absolved if he kills Ares. And Kratos believes that this also means that they will be forgotten and he will no longer be haunted by the memories of his family's death. Yet when he does kill Ares, Athena reveals that his sins are forgiven but can never be forgotten. JK lol. Basically, his selfish attitude makes him a misguided villain for most of the games, who becomes imbued with god powers before eventually turning on the gods and the titans, and then just unleashing a bunch of plagues on humanity. So yeah. Number 4. Galactus. Following the path of Apocalypse, Galactus before he went god mode was a simple space explorer named Galen, who ended up sort of giving up on his mission and killing a bunch of people. While he wasn't inherently evil before his ascension, he also wasn't really an inherently evil godlike being even after getting his powers. So Galactus is a supervillain simply because of the fact that he is just such a large threat. But ultimately, he's just a really hungry dude. He's not really evil, he's just hungry. As Galen, he was tasked with saving one of the last surviving worlds, his home world of Ta. However, Galen tried to solve the problem, but ultimately he just gave up, thinking the universe was simply at its end, and therefore there was nothing that could be done. He encouraged the last survivors to fly into the center of all that chaos where the energy and matter was gravitating towards, a radioactive ball known as the Cosmic Egg, and just get it all over with. He joined them in the ship and they all sailed into the center of the Cosmic Egg, dying because radioactive. Except that Galen somehow survived and was chosen to be reborn. He was revitalized and merged with the cosmic entity known as the Sixth Infinity, the sentience of the multiverse. This transformed Galen into Galactus, who was so powerful and eventually had lived so long that he needed to devour worlds in order to survive. Harsh deal, bud. Number 3. Brainiac. In the Justice League Unlimited animated series in the episode Divided We Fall, Brainiac goes god mode after deciding to fully merge with Lex Luthor. Brainiac's goal is to record all information ever known and destroy the original source material for that information. I know, that doesn't sound that bad, until you realize that you are going to be recorded and deleted yourself, which is not so great. Lex adds to this plan his own imagination, feeling that Brainiac is limited by his programming. His goal is to reshape the universe in their own image after accruing all information. The two almost succeed, creating androids of the Justice Lords to stop the Justice League. Unfortunately, they ended up defeated when the Flash uses the Speed Force to separate them, and almost phases out of existence as a result. Wally, don't go. Number 2. Surtur. In the MCU, Surtur goes from being godlike to dead to just being godlike again. Odin successfully forcefully banished him and the rest of his race to Muspelheim, after defeating Surtur and separating him from his power source, the Eternal Flame. But there is a prophecy that Surtur will bring about the end of Asgard through the event known as Ragnarok, wherein Asgard's empire was fated to fall and be destroyed. To prevent Surtur from rising up again, Thor defeats him, but foolishly keeps his remains, I guess his skull, really, in Odin's vault, where the Eternal Flame is also kept, which really seems like a little too close for comfort to me, but it comes in handy when Loki needs to evoke Ragnarok in order to defeat Hela, by dropping Surtur's remains into the Eternal Flame and resurrecting Surtur, who is now bigger and stronger than ever. While Hela is the goddess of death, she appears no match for Surtur, the god of, I guess, being big and on fire. That's his thing. Number 1. Nebula. What we often tend to forget when it comes to the Infinity Gauntlet storyline was that it wasn't just Thanos that managed to wield the gauntlet. There was a villain, actually far worse than him, who stole it from him before being stopped. Nebula. Nebula, who was basically a corpse at this point after almost being completely obliterated by Thanos, a story for another time, managed to get the gauntlet off her supposed grandfather. Once again, a story for another time. Following in her grandfather's footsteps, she goes all mad and decides instead of just getting revenge on Thanos, she should rule the world with the gauntlet. This causes Adam and Thanos to team up and take her down, thus ending her godhood with the gauntlet. Thank you so much for watching, Nerd Squad. Who do you think are some of the most powerful supervillains? Who do you think didn't make the cut for our part 1 or 2 but should have? If you could give any supervillain god powers who is yet to receive them, who would you give them to? Let us know in the comments below. And speaking of comments, it's time to turn to some comments from one of our latest videos, Top 10 Superheroes Who Became Gods Part 2. Chris David comments, "God damn, did you butcher pronouncing the world serpent's name, lol. Ha ha ha. Yeah, I know. I tried really hard though. It's a tricky one. Nailing pronunciation for so many complex comic book characters and entities' names is really harder than it looks. Let's try that again. Jormungand. I believe that's how you pronounce it." Ronar says, "I see you are a person of culture as well. Love that shirt." Thank you, Ronar. I take it you are also a Bayonetta fan. That's another T-Turtle shirt, by the way. They make some cute nerd shirts, let me tell you. And that's all the time we have for comments today. Be sure to comment below for a chance to be featured in a future video. And be sure to like, subscribe, and ring our bell while you're on your way down there. This has been Top 10 Nerd, and I'm your host Amanda McKnight, reminding you to stay nerdy, YouTube.